Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later, as now it's time to spin a tale about one of my favourite bits of the Transformers franchise. Yes, it's Beast Wars again, and before you tell me that we only just had a Toy of the Week on the series not so long ago, it seemed like it was fair game considering the fever-pitch excitement surrounding the upcoming Kingdom line at present. After all, we've only just had a whole horde of new releases unveiled, including the likes of Airazor and Dinobot just this week. Besides, our last spotlight was on the pre-cartoon Bat vs. Croc 2-pack, whereas today we're giving our attention solely to one of the more memorable characters from the popular mainframe animation that made so many fans fall in love with the line to begin with. Spoiler alert before we continue. Yep, today it's all about Blackarachnia, who after being introduced partway through the show's first season, made a name for herself as a conniving and duplicitous member of the Predacon crew, at least until she eventually meets the Fusor known as Silverbolt and slowly has a change of heart as he convinces her to join the Maximals come the final season. However, it's not until she receives a significant upgrade to a Transmetal 2 form that she finally embraces her new allegiance and the activation code that goes along with it.
Blackarachnia, maximize!
And it just so happens to be that very version of the character that we're celebrating in toy form today, as although she's definitely more well known for her original look, there's no doubting that this is pretty special too. Here is Transmetal 2 Blackarachnia. Beast Wars Transmetal 2 Blackarachnia was released in 1999 as the third version of the character seen in toy form overall, assuming you include the McDonald's Happy Meal tie-in from the year prior, of course. The figure is quite a departure for Blackarachnia's previous look, although unlike her original toy, this version was at least newly molded specifically to represent her. As a consequence, it comes significantly closer to her on-screen appearance on the whole, despite the sizable shoulder pads not disappearing into thin air as they do on the show. Now a mega-class Beast Wars release, it also makes Blackarachnia significantly more sizable than her previous deluxe denotation, not to mention more intricate as a result. As a Transmetal 2, the aesthetic on offer here is also quite a digression from the Beast Wars toy line's previous releases, with a jagged and heavily detailed design now taking precedence. It does maintain the heavy use of chrome from the original Transmetal idea, however, although now it's shaded into different colours to add even more visual intrigue. In fact, this toy is quite a feast for the eyeballs, all things considered, with a rich colour scheme of blue, magenta, yellow and heavy black all making for a memorable showing. Of course, Blackarachnia here retains her signature spider mode, which is now more extreme and gruesome than ever. Once again, the Transmetal 2 style proves to be a real showstopper here, as it's hard to imagine another arachnid-inspired Transformers figure that looks quite as stunning as this one. The eyes and moulded hair on this toy really do make it the stuff of nightmares, so much so that I'd certainly advise keeping it away from anyone who's a little squeamish on the subject. Blackarachnia's beast form features a set of moving mandibles, which can then also be deployed on a pullback string mechanism that retracts rather suddenly if you're not prepared for it. Her legs are heavily articulated and give a real sense of presence to the beast mode, although they're not exactly the best at keeping her standing stably all told. Then you have a rather attractive spark crystal gimmick, involving a tiny translucent ball revealing her faction symbol. In Blackarachnia's case, it can be flipped to switch allegiances. Overall, there's an absolute ton of fun to be had with this spider form, which also happens to be one of the more spectacular iterations of the character to look at. One thing that is weird is that there were clearly plans to originally have a third vehicular form of some sort, evidenced by the presence of small wheels that now serve no function at all. Still, the two modes this figure retains both more than make up for it, and indeed it doesn't take much to get her contorted into humanoid form.
The main complexity on offer here is how the beast mode thorax unfurls to reveal a particularly slender looking robot form on the whole. Blackarachnia may no longer be in her spider configuration, but she's still looking creepy enough here, with the design and colour scheme all making a distinct first impression. In common with the rest of the Beast Wars line, the robot mode is highly posable thanks to the heavy presence of ball joints, although can be very hard to stand on account of such thin heels. Still, if you can get her stood stably, then Blackarachnia looks nothing shy of simply breathtaking, showing off everything that's great about the Transmetal 2 aesthetic to begin with. The head sculpt has an entirely new take on a familiar character, but still manages to evoke the right sense of personality and leaves you in no doubt who you're dealing with. The stylized hands feature huge retractable claws that look like they'd be useful for putting a Predacon in their place, or maybe even a Maximal. They can also hold the retractable mandible device from the Beast mode, utilizing it as her main source of armament in robot form. There's then a set of rockets found stowed away on her back, yet further evidence of that abandoned vehicle form perhaps. The gimmicks don't stop there, as Blackarachnia also has a rather curious spring-loaded feature, whereby pushing on her head will swiftly rotate her hips in a kicking motion. In truth, it's a bit of a naff inclusion, but still doesn't detract from what is otherwise a fun and extremely attractive robot mode. In fact, in many ways, this figure is one of the more definitive Transmetal 2 releases, showcasing the best of what the line had to offer in terms of aesthetic and design. It's also yet another in a long line of examples that demonstrate what a wonderful toy line Beast Wars was as a whole, as if you're in any doubt. It may not be Blackarachnia's most well-known iteration, but still, this remains a fantastic figure of the fan-favourite character overall.
So it's only fair to say that I had at least a pretty decent Beast Wars collection when the toys were still on shelves back in the day, and there were really only a handful of molds that I wasn't at least passingly familiar with. Now, one of those was indeed this version of Blackarachnia, so it's great to finally see what all the fuss is about after all these years, particularly as I always loved the design of Transmetal 2 toys as a whole, with their asymmetric, rough and ready detailing playing at odds with the clean and precise aesthetic that we normally expect of Transformers toys. Now, of course, Blackarachnia's Transmetal 2 toy is also rather notorious for originally having a gimmick that precisely no one wanted, that being the ability to remove her blue chest armor to reveal a rather more suggestive design underneath. Seriously. Although early versions of this toy kept the feature intact, it was quickly altered so that the subsequent releases saw the blue bra being glued into place. What's really weird about this is that the bare-chested version is not only depicted on the toy's box artwork, but is also the one the animators chose to run with for the cartoon itself. Then again, that's probably no great surprise given that it was admitted her original animation model was created after the designer took inspiration from a visit to a local strip club. Still, despite its questionable origin, that same design remains the most memorable version of Blackarachnia to this day, as evidenced by it being recreated so slavishly for the upcoming Kingdom line. Which is of course a perfect time to mention that that toy is available to pre-order at TF Source now, a link for which you'll find in today's video description. Will we ever see a new version of Blackarachnia's Transmetal 2 design? Time will tell, I suppose, but at least they did her justice the first time around. Anyway, that's it from me, so don't forget to drop me a like if you enjoyed today's video and have a great rest of your day. TTFN.